Chapter 18. Spikes of a Human Fly. As the Drews raced toward the garage, Nancy's father cried out, "It could be a bomb! You'd better stay here." "Oh, Dad, please," she begged. "You mustn't run into danger either." The two reached the garage at the same moment. The ticking was loud. It was definitely coming from beneath Nancy's car. Mr. Drew grabbed a rake and began to pull the ticking object from beneath the automobile. "It isn't worth risking your life, Dad," Nancy cried out. With a deft sweep of his arms, her father swung the bomb onto the lawn. It rolled away. "The ticking is dying down," he said. "I'm sure the bomb's not going to explode. In rolling it over, I probably partly deactivated it." A few seconds later, the ticking stopped entirely. Mr. Drew walked over and began taking the object apart. "Why, Dad!" Nancy began, alarmed. The lawyer laughed. "A few years ago, I took some instructions in deactivating bombs," he explained. "I thought it might come in handy sometime, but I admit I never thought it would be right in my own garage." Mr. Drew confirmed his guess that by rolling the bomb, he had moved a switch on the inside. It had slowed the ticking. "Dad, if you hadn't disarmed the bomb, when would it have gone off?" "I can't be sure, of course," her father replied. "But from this timer in her, I'd say in about 10 minutes. Suddenly, Nancy remembered Tommy, who had given them the warning. Where was he? Just then, he came out the back door with Mrs. Gruen. The little boy began to complain about Hannah. "She wouldn't let me come out and see the fun," he said. "And she did the right thing," Mr. Drew spoke up. "Tommy, it's a good thing you noticed the ticking sound, or Nancy's car would have been blown to smithereens." "What?" Tommy cried out. "Was it a bomb I heard?" "It sure was," Nancy replied. "Tommy, you said you saw a man sneaking away from the garage. What did he look like?" Tommy could not give a very detailed description of him, but it tallied closely with that of Fred Bunce. If it was he, what had he hoped to gain by blowing up her car? Upon reflection, Nancy told herself, "It would be a little hard for me to get around without a car, but then I could have rented one. I believe Fred Bunce had some other reason for coming here." She could think of none and turned to Tommy. Putting her arms around him, she said, "You're a brave little detective, Tommy. Keep it up, and maybe someday you and I can solve a big case together." "Really? You mean it?" the little boy asked. "That would be groovy." While Mr. Drew was still working to dismantle the bomb completely, he asked Nancy to get in touch with the police and request that an officer drop over as soon as possible. "Anyone who plants a bomb should be listed on the police blotter and a hunt for him started," the lawyer said. Nancy had just finished making the phone call when Ned Nickerson arrived. She said lightly, "We almost didn't have a car to ride in." "What do you mean?" Nancy briefed him on the recent happening. Ned was worried. "You don't seem to be safe anywhere." Nancy smiled. "Now, Ned, I always get out of these scrapes, don't I?" Then she changed the subject. "We'd better start for Berryville. Ned, will you help carry out our supper?" When he saw the boxes of sandwiches and pie and the container of ice cream, he laughed. "That's enough food to feed an army." Hannah Gruen spoke up. "I know you boys. I'll bet there won't be a crumb left of what's packed in here." "We'll sure do our best to make your prediction come true," Ned told her with a laugh. When he and Nancy reached Miss Carter's house, they found Bess, George, and their dates walking out to feed the cats. They all stopped to look through the huge wire cage. "Aren't the Persians marvelous?" Bess asked. "I guess so," Dave replied without enthusiasm. He was a rangy athlete. "But give me a nice big dog for a pal." Ned and Bert showed only mild interest in the pets. But when the girls took the 3 boys on a walk around the outside of the house and explained the mysterious happenings, they became intrigued. "You say one of the men who came here wore spiked shoes?" Ned asked. "Yes," Nancy replied. "But we don't know which one he was. There are now at least 3 suspects. All the boys were interested in this particular fact. Bert remarked, "It's obvious the fellow had some special reason for wearing spiked shoes, and it wasn't for stealing cats." Suddenly, an idea came to Nancy. She began to examine the wall of the house under the window where she had found the hand and footprints. "Look here!" she called. The others rushed over. Nancy pointed out deep gouges in the brickwork. "Do you suppose the person who wore those shoes used them as spikes to climb up here?" "He could have," Ned conceded, "but I still don't see how he could have kept his balance." Dave had been examining the wall. Now he began to take measurements between the gouges. "Do you know what I think?" he asked. "What?" the others asked. "That the climber had something over his hands that he could use to dig into the brickwork, as well as the spikes on his shoes." The 6 young people examined the wall closely and agreed. Bert shook his head. "Just the same, I wouldn't want to try climbing up this wall with spikes or claws or anything else. Give me a real safe elevator." His friends laughed. Bess, proud of her date's discovery, tucked her arm into his and led him into the house. She and George had set the table earlier. Ned carried Miss Carter downstairs, and then a merry supper party began. For a time, the mysteries were put aside, and only wisecracks and teasing remarks flew back and forth. Miss Carter was immensely amused and laughed heartily. The group had just finished eating their apple pie topped with ice cream when the front doorbell rang. Everyone looked questioningly at the others, except the actress. With a happy smile, she said, "I'm expecting Toby Simpson. He wants to inspect the mummy case and see if it can be used in the revival of The Dancer and the Fool." The actor was introduced to the boys, and talk resumed, while the girls cleared the table. The Emerson trio found Mr. Simpson very entertaining. When the girls returned, the actor said he was ready to look at the mummy case in the attic. Miss Carter insisted upon going along, and asked Nancy and Ned to accompany the couple. Once more, the actress was placed on the old couch. Nancy chuckled. "The last occupant of that mummy case was alive," she said. At Toby Simpson's questioning look, she said, "One of Miss Carter's cats got locked in there by mistake." The actor laughed. Then, after examining the case, he declared it to be in very good condition and said, "Indeed, I can use it in the revival. It's pretty valuable, so I'll leave it here until we're ready to go into rehearsal." He looked around at all the other props, saying he was amazed at their good condition. He stopped in front of a large chest. "Was this used in one of your plays?" he asked Miss Carter. "No, but if you're interested in borrowing it, help yourself." The actor said he would like to use the chest in the revival and would take it along with him right now. "I'll empty it for you," he said, raising the lid. Nancy was standing next to him. As he opened the chest wide, she gasped. On top of several boxes stood a smaller chest with a silver nameplate. Engraved on it was the name Woonton. "Is something wrong?" Miss Carter called. Nancy explained what they had found inside the big chest and asked if the actress knew anything about it. "Why, no. I have never locked that chest and haven't looked in it since I moved here. Someone must have put the little chest inside." The group speculated on who had put the Woonton chest inside and when. "It's my guess," said Nancy, "that Gus found this chest hidden somewhere in the house and planned to take it along. He was interrupted or couldn't carry it at the time and quickly hid the chest in here." Ned spoke up. "If it's unlocked, don't you think we should find out what's inside?" "Indeed I do," the actress answered. "Bring the little chest here, please, so I can see what is in it." Ned carried it over. The chest proved to be fairly heavy. Miss Carter lifted the lid, and everyone exclaimed in surprise at the contents. There was a quantity of beautiful jewelry and several carefully wrapped, priceless figurines. "Maybe we should turn these over to the police," Miss Carter suggested. Nancy requested that she not do so immediately. "I'm sure that somebody will be back here to get them. Why don't we return them to your big chest and then set up a 24-hour watch? End of chapter 18.